Welcome, everybody. Today we have Dr. Ana Paula Queiroga. Dr. Ana Paula is an ex-director for Development, Innovation and Communication at Docapescas, which is a leading company in Portugal in the field of fishing and aquaculture. So you have the slides in front of you. The slides are in Portuguese, but of course, Ana Paula will try to give her best to make the presentation in English. After Ana Paula presentation, we're going to have the presentation of Nuno Catarino. Nuno Catarino is has a PhD in the field of physics, and she's from Elecnor Demos, and we'll clarify some questions. Hello, Nuno. We'll clarify some questions that you might have about the Earth observation industry and its application in different areas, namely in the field of fishing and aquaculture. That is the project that you are working on, but also in other fields that we already spoke about, like forestry, agriculture, and so on, okay? So we're gonna start with Ana Paula. So Ana Paula, the floor is yours.
Okay.
And if you have any questions, feel free to ask Ana Paula during the presentation. Otherwise, we'll make the questions at the end. Okay? Feel free to start.
Okay, welcome. And I would like to express my thanks to Professor Luis for this invitation and to share with you some of my experience in the fields of fishing and fisheries and aquaculture. The presentation will have 5 main topics: Portugal, Europe, the world, and sustainability and trends. Beginning with Portugal, we have our economic exclusive zone, our SBE of Portugal, are located in these 3 areas in the white blue. And the dark blue is the proposal for the extension of our SBE. So this extension will unify all these 3 areas of the Portuguese continent, Madeira and Azores Island. This SBE of Portugal is included in a main zone named the Atlantic Northwest. And so we have Portugal, and this zone is one of the biggest one, not the biggest, but one of the biggest ones. And we have until the south of Portugal, the 36 parallel. So when we see products with this rotulation of Atlantic Northwest, it's not only for our area, our SBE, but a main one. Okay. About the fishing, Portugal is the 11th place in the European Union, with something like 112 thousands of tons, and something like between 200 and 280 million of euros. We have an average price per kilo, something between 1.8 and 2.5 euros per kilo. In Portugal, the main fishery sector capture fresh fish. Frozen fish represent only 8% of the total of the captures and the productions, and almost all, something like 99%, is for human consumption. And the regulation of the fishing sector is on this Decreto-Lei 81 from 2005. So this is the regulation of the fishing sector. The main parts of fishing in Portugal are Sesimbra, Peniche, and Matosinhos. These three main ports. Our vessels are a lot of small and artisanal fisheries. Something like we have 708 boats, but only 4,000 have a license. And most of them are little fishing vessels, and only about 3% of them has more than 24 meters of length. So we have our fishing in Portugal is most of them artisanal, and we have also a sector with fishermen. Is not a big one compared with others, but we still have something like 17,000 fishermen in Portugal. The main species that we capture are the carapaus, is the horse mackerel, and mackerel. So we have main horse mackerel and mackerel, and also sardines and octopus. These are the main species for the fishing in Portugal. The main exported and imported fishes are the cod, also the octopus, and also shrimps. In what concerns the aquaculture in Portugal, we take the 11th place in the European Union with something like 12,000 tons and something like a volume of business of 83 million of euros, average price of 6.64. Many of them are in marine waters and not inland. And the main species are clams, oysters, and sea bass, sea bream, but mainly clams and oysters. These are a graphic that shows that in yellow we have clams, oysters. In volume are the first ones, the most important, and also in price. You see in this graphic we have yellow are mainly oysters and clams, and in green we have in volume and in value also the fresh fish from the sea. Our transformation and industrial sector, we have in Portugal something like 168 companies, something like a workforce of 7,000 people, and the main products that we trade are frozen fish. The frozen fish is the most important for our industry. Also, the canned fish is important, but the first one is the frozen fish. The distribution in Portugal main are concentrated in the biggest and the modern distribution, 80% of them. Only 20% are for small markets and specialized shops for fisheries. The consumption in Portugal, we are the first consumption in a fish in the European Union, and the third in mondial terms after Korea and Norway. So we are the first consumption with something like 61.5 kilos per capita. Our target for this market, we have two targets between people, young people between 15 and 24 years old, and above the 55 years old. And our consume is almost wild fish, wild fresh fish. And also an important and increasing market for canned fish, but most of them is fresh and wild fish. In Portugal, okay, oh, sorry, going to Europe. The production in Europe and is something like 5 million of tons, and the European Union, we are in 6th place of the most important producers of fisheries and aquaculture. We are the 3rd place in the production of the world, and most of this production in Europe becomes from the fishing sector. 80% fishing sector, and only 20% from the aquaculture sector. The most important countries in the production in Europe are Russia and Norway and Iceland. But inside the European Union, we have Denmark, but Denmark only because they fish a lot of products, but not for human consumption, for subproducts. And so the biggest ones are Spain and France inside the European Union. We have here the evolution of fisheries in the first chart, and in the second one of aquaculture. And you can see that the volumes in columns and the values here that show that we have in the fisheries, the landings in the European Union, we have a stability with some outsides, but a stability line. In the aquaculture, we have an increasing line. Here we have a small decrease, but it's still an increasing trend line. The top 5 countries in fisheries, both in volume or value, are Spain and France. These are the most important. If we see something like in volume Denmark, but is because of the captures for industries and not for consumption. And we have so Spain, also Netherlands, United Kingdom, and France. Here in volume. In value, we have almost the same, but of course Denmark is off of the value, and we have Italy in second place of the most value countries for fishing. In aquaculture terms, it's almost the same. The only difference is that Denmark is off of the list, and we include Greece, because in aquaculture, terms, as you know, Greece is a very important producer. The top species in volume and value in Europe are also clams, oysters, and salmonids. We have the two main, both in volume here and in value, are the same, are salmonids. We have here an inversion of position, but are the two first. In volume, we have first the bivalves and other mollusks, and after that, the salmonids. And in values is the inverse. First, the salmonids, more valued, and after that, the bivalves. About the fluxogram of the business, when we speak about import and exportations, the European Union is something like 32 billions of euros and is the second most important trader of the world after China. We have the first one is China, and after that, the European Union. But European Union has a big deficit in this sector. We have here the total fisheries and aquaculture products, and in these two maps separate the fisheries and aquaculture. And so this supply capacity is very dependent on the import. So we have a supply of something like 14.2 million tons, and the importation is 9.4. So, and the same with aquaculture. So we have to support our consume in the European Union, we have a big dependence and a deficit in our trade balance. Speaking about the consumption in Europe, we have in Portugal, if you remember, I told you it's something like 61 kilos per capita. In Europe, we have something like 24 kilos per capita. And but the trend about the type of the fisheries is the same. In Europe, we have something like 75% of wild fish, representing about 80 kilos per capita in the European Union. Only 25% of our consumption become from aquaculture. And how about the expenses per capita in the European Union is something like 106 euros per capita annum. In Portugal, we are going to see is 3 more. We have something like 300 euros per capita. Here we have the consumption trend, also per capita. This is about the wild fish, the fisheries, and here the aquaculture. So the confirmation of what I told you. So in European Union, the consumption is most of the time wild fish. And here we have the expenditure per capita. As I told you, Portugal is in first place with something like 371 euros per capita per annum. European Union is here with something like 110. And also we have here some the expenditure, the comparison between the expenditure in aquaculture versus meat products. And so the fishery versus the meat one. You see in Portugal, we are here, but we have a good balance between both. First of all, we have some countries mainly with the consumption of meat, as you see. In what concerns the sales of fishery and aquaculture products, the unprocessed ones, we have here, most of them, we have something like 80% from retail. And this is mostly the same in all countries. We have a decrease in United Kingdom, but in Portugal, the figures are almost the same, like something like 80% is concerned with the channel, is the retail. In mondial terms, we have an evolution of the aquaculture production. You see in yellow, we have the fisheries, and after that, we have a blue, are the evolution of the aquaculture. And the aquaculture in inland waters are more important in terms of the world production, and also the marine waters in this section is a small one in what concerns the world production, but is increasing. The trend is for stability of the production at fisheries and an increase of aquaculture. So in mondial terms, this is the numbers. These are the numbers for fishing and aquaculture, something like 180 million of tons, and a volume of business, something like $400 billion. And this is divided, as you see, something like half for fisheries and half for aquaculture. And the trend is to inverse the positions, and the trend is for aquaculture became the most important sector. The top of the countries for fisheries is China, and only China with 15% of all the world fisheries. And the top 7 countries have something like 50%, the top 20, 74%. Here are the list of the top 10 global captures for country, the producers, and we have China, of course, and after that, Indonesia, Peru, India, Russia, United States, and so on. In what concerns the aquaculture, China is also the first one, followed by India and Indonesia. But as you can see, of the 72 million tons, China produces 47, so more than half. Here we have the contribution to the world fisheries and aquaculture productions. And so we have in the top China, both for fisheries and aquaculture productions. And most of them, of course, a great 8 of the aquaculture in inland waters. Inland waters. Here we have the Europe, and as you see in Europe, we have almost a big importance of the fisheries and fisheries in marine areas. Okay. The consumption of the world, in terms of the world, are something like 20 kilos per capita. So in the world, we have 20 kilos per capita. In Europe, 24. In Portugal, 61 kilos per capita. And these are the volume of business. Almost 88% is for human consumption. So in the world, 80% for human consumption, but we have here 12% for the industry of oils and herrings of fishing. And also for this is for to feed, most of the time, to feed the aquaculture fisheries. The most important species are the salmon and trout and shrimps. And we have a big importance also of the frozen fish. These are the main countries in terms of exporters and importers in value, in volume, and in value. This is in value. The importance, so we have the biggest one, China, as we told. And in the importers, we have here the European Union is not in this chart because the chart is by country, but the European Union represents 37% of the importations in the world. Here we can see the evolution of the technology and the increasing importance of the technology along the channel of the fish processing, from the fisheries until the consumption, the retailer and the consumption. So we have a physical flow, but we have also a digital flow and a big importance of the information along the supply chain, from the boat to the table. So this is the connection that we want in the sector, is from the producer, the sea, or if it is a producer of aquaculture, but from the producer to our table. So it's an increasing importance of technology in this process, and in the security and the information about the product. We can stay at a restaurant and know precisely at the restaurant the origins of the fish that we are eating. About sustainability, so this is there are a trend a trend of risk, of increasing risk in the marine fish stocks, and so we see in yellow the unsustainable fishing, and as you see, it's increasing. So this is a problem that we need to face from now to it, and it's a trend. So the same, this is the stocks with problems, with biological problems, with unsustainable biological risks. And so we have a yellow also increasing a lot of zones. And you can see that the more risky areas are the Mediterranean, the south of Pacific, but also the Atlantic Northwest. This is the zone when the Europe and Portugal are located. So we have, in this zone, we have more than 50% of sustainable but unsustainable biologically stocks. So we need to face this challenge. Illegal fisheries is also a problem that we need to face, and we see that the countries more concerned with this topic are Europe, Northern America, Australia, and New Zealand, but we have serious concerns about Latin America, Africa, also Central and South Asia, because are countries where is more difficult to obtain valid and secure information and good reports about the fishing sector. So also the climatic problem and the climatic change impact, especially as you can see in Africa, very high, but also in Caribbean, in Latin America, Asia. So this is the more problematic zones, the more with more vulnerability for fisheries. And so trends to 2030. So we have a trend of increasing the aquaculture production, and our supply is based, the increase of the supply is based on aquaculture. And what we are going to see is the inversion of the importance, and the aquaculture will contribute more for the supply chain of fish than the fishery, the capture of fisheries. So the consumption is the same. The consumption of fish, it will increase based on the development of aquaculture. And this is a trend of all the countries. Is not a trend of one zone, but is Europe, Africa, China. In all the countries, what we see is a trend for an increase of aquaculture production. So we see here the increasing role of aquaculture, both in terms of production or consumption. So, and the inversion, as you see, the inversion because we have more fisheries and now more aquaculture. So what we expect all is that development of the aquaculture production will be sustained in mills different than that we have today, because today most of the mills for aquaculture are fish mills that come from fishes captured in the sea. And what we expect is an inversion of this trend with an increase of meals from byproducts, and also vegetarian meals for aquaculture products. And so we have, I finish with some references sites and links that you can go through and have more information about the evolution of the sector. The availability of the information is not what we expect. So you see that most of the information that we have available at the moment, at the reports for 2020, are from reports something like 2 years ago. So we have here to develop the flux information, but this is some reference, and this, okay, it's about me, and thank you very much for this.
Thank you, Ana Paula, for your great presentation. I think it was a great overlook of the aquaculture and fishing market in Portugal, in Europe, and across the world. So I'm going to ask now students to see if they have questions, if they have comments they would like to raise, and also thinking about your own project, okay? Possible questions you might have.
Yeah, if I might ask, I would ask some questions.
Yeah, okay. Of course. Go ahead, Cristina.
Yeah, Hola. First of all, thank you so much, Anna, for that presentation. Right now, I have to be honest, I don't know that much about fishing and about aquaculture, but I think you know that we have a huge project here in our course where we have to look at certain aspects of aquaculture and fishing. And we are taking, like, my project is taking place of the aquaculture, so I'm rather focusing on that part, but since also, like, you presented us some very interesting trends, which where you can see that the trends are actually leading to more aquaculture, I would have some questions regarding this. So would you say that aquaculture is more sustainable than usual fishing?
It's a big discussion.
Yes, I think so.
Okay. For the moment, we need both of them. Mm-hmm. We need both fisheries and aquaculture for a sustainability. But we need, and the aquaculture sector become to invest in more sustainable and secure processes, year by year. So we need to believe that aquaculture will increase the level of sustainability, but yet, yes, we look for the wild fish as the healthy one, yes, and for the moment, but also we need to concern about the situation of the stocks. So when we talk about artisanal fisheries, like in Portugal, there's no problem with sustainability, okay? But when we speak about industrial fisheries, it's more difficult to implement those criteria. But still, I know some big companies in the business that are concerned with this, and they are introducing a lot of rules to have a more sustainable fisheries, because it's also important for the industry, the connection to sustainability. So I think one problem, if you retain what I told you here, is that I see here, no, it's not here. It's about the meals. It's about the fish meals for aquaculture. So what we have now, it's that the fish meals, the origin of the fish meals are fishes that the vessels capture from the sea. So we are taking fish from the sea to feed the aquaculture. This is a problem, okay?
I see.
So what we want in the future, a trend, is to have our sources of fish meals, byproducts that are discharges, and also vegetarian meals. All this is in study by universities to implement more sustainability in the feeding of aquaculture
Now I get
products.
that. Vegan. Okay. Wow, that's interesting. But yeah, I mean, there are so many question marks that, like, I mean, overall, in aquaculture, you can either do it inland, like marine, like in the sea, or you can do it inland waters, what you said. But but I think you also mentioned that you do it more inland than in the sea. But like, what is, like, why is it better to do it like inland and not in the sea? I mean, isn't it easier to just do it right away in the sea? I mean, it's hard to probably find a good spot, but I don't know.
Okay, now the question is this, that is, it's easier inland, much more easier inland, okay? Because inland you have a controlled environment. In the sea, you don't have. Right? If you are in marine waters, we depend on the climatic conditions, on the temperature of the waters, the change of the temperature. If you are inland, you control the temperature, the quality of the water. Okay, you control that. But in the sea, in marine waters, it's much more difficult. In Norway, they are very developed in the aquaculture production in marine waters. And because as you know, the North Sea is like a lake, okay? It's like the Mediterranean, so it's something like a lake. And but in Portugal, for instance, with our coast, the marine production of aquaculture is very difficult, very, very difficult.
Yeah, I mean, also, like, from the production of fishes itself, doesn't it, like, if you do it in aquaculture, doesn't the fish itself, don't they change, like, the bones, the structure of their, like, their bodies, kind of? I mean, there's so many different studies, so I mean, I feel like I have so many questions about that. It's a huge topic.
Yes. From a point of view of the industry, is much more easy inland aquaculture, okay? From the point of view of industry, because you controlled a lot of parameters. But from the sustainability of and the quality and the healthy of the product, is much more healthy, the aquaculture production, because we are in open sea, in open waters. So the stress for the fish is higher in inland production, okay? And lower in sea waters. So the quality of the fish of aquaculture is better in marine lands, in marine sea. But inland is industrial, much more easier process.
Yeah, okay, I see the problem here.
So
but
we have to balance.
I'm going to ask everybody that has questions to put them on the chat, okay? To see if Ana Paula can answer them.
Yeah, sorry that I have so many questions.
Oh, it's okay, Christina. If nobody has questions, you can make one.
I would have another question.
Yes, Francisca?
Regarding, our topic is also new agricultures with services such as site risk assessment and the monitoring of those agriculture sites. using the Earth observation technology. And we were wondering, or what I came across is that there's also a lot of sort of different viewpoints when it comes to aquaculture because of the environmental impact that also aquacultures have on shorelines, on open waters, on species, for instance. If sort of species that are not native to those waters are planted there, grown, maybe contaminate the water. So my question is generally, if we sort of as a group make a service that facilitates an easier and better monitoring and execution basically of agricultures offshore, if that is as sustainable as possible. Because it does sort of contaminate waters. There's a lot, like there are many issues we came across, and we are trying to make it as sustainable as possible, of course, the service. But I think it's a bit challenging to incorporate that, whereas, for instance, on land agriculture is maybe not as good for the fish, but regarding contaminating natural waters and maybe delicate shorelines is maybe the better solution. So what would your take be on securing sustainability whilst making agriculture easy, accessible for everyone?
It's an endless discussion. I'm not a specialist in aquaculture, but all the meetings that I enter about this theme is endless discussion between the specialists, okay? And I think there are impact anyway, inland impacts and in the sea impacts. What we need to balance and to develop is the impact in the environment and the impact in human healthy because of the product. So we need to balance both the points. The environment, there are a pollution for the environment and there are a pollution for our healthy in the planet and as persons. And so I think that the trend is with the development of the technology, the aquaculture can develop inland process, but more sustainable. And we have more very examples of that. Because when we speak about inland aquaculture, we are most of the time thinking about intensive production, okay? But we have a lot of studies develop the extensive production inlands. This is in big zones with waters that came from the sea and the system controlled in terms of the impact in the environment. And so it's better for fishes because we are not in tanks, you see, but in containers. There's not containers as most of the producers. Nowadays, most of inland aquaculture production is in containers, but we have a great investment in open spaces, inland, but open spaces near the sea and intermediate zones between rivers and sea. And I think there are a lot of expectation about that, but because we can conciliate the more controlled inland with a healthy fish, a healthy product, a healthy life for the products. I think it's a trend, okay? Because the sea zones are most of them already explored for aquaculture, because as I told you, there are a lot of conditions. And in the ocean, in the open ocean, it's not possible, it's very difficult. I don't know 100 years after that it may be possible, but nowadays and in the next 30 years, it's very difficult because the strength of the ocean destroy the fisheries. So I think for the moment and for the next 30 years, what we'll see, it's a big develop of the production of the quality of the fisheries and also the control of the impact in the environment, but more in inland zones, zones of transition between the land and the ocean, zones near the sea, but in the transition.
Okay, thank you.
There are, Ana Paula, there are 2 more questions in the chat, and then we're gonna move to, can you please answer the questions you know? And then we're gonna move to Nuno Catarino presentation, okay?
Okay, is about, I see a lot of them, 6, so it's about Sebastian. Are there any limits? No, for Sebastian part answer, no, there are not limits now for the raised of aquaculture. There are some species that genetically speaking are more difficult to develop and other ones more easier. And when we think about the sea bass, for instance, the shrimps, are species that nowadays are more controlled in terms of aquaculture production. But we have an increased in species that the technology and the science allow us to produce in aquaculture lands. And